Welcome everyone to the Past Women in Technology fourth webinar this month. We've had this is our fourth one to celebrate International Women's Month. And today we actually have our WIT co-leader, Ree Irish, so I'm really excited about that. Our Women in Technology group is all about networking, lifting each other up really, helping each other develop our careers. We can find resources to help each other. We can find mentors. We can be mentors. We're all about supporting each other. And it's always hard to get this first slide to go for some reason. There we go.
Yeah, I think I have the transition. I should fix that.
So SentryOne is our sponsor. And thanks to them, we are able to host a wonderful luncheon at the PASS Summit. They support us in that every year, and if you go to PASS Summit, definitely come to the luncheon. It's always an amazing time. They also provide funds so that we can give away a gift certificate each month, and so I'll be sending an email to one of the one lucky person on our session today, and that person will get a $50 Amazon gift card. So thanks to SentryOne for everything that they do for us. We have all of our recordings within a day or so. We upload them to YouTube, so be sure to check them out. On our homepage, you can find a list of all of our previous meetings and get to the YouTube eventually going that way. We have information about upcoming SQL Saturdays, the upcoming sessions that we're having, and other news that's going on. So be sure to check that out. If you are not a member of our virtual group, then make sure to join. You'll find out about what we have going on in our monthly newsletter, and we usually have an interesting topic. We'll let you know the news that's going on, as well as promote all the women speakers at the SQL Saturdays and other events. So be sure to check that out. We're also on Twitter, and you can follow us at pass_wit, and be sure to tweet any things that you find, for example, great articles that you find, and use the PassWit hashtag. There are many SQL Saturdays coming up in the next couple of weeks, including Santiago, Orange County, let's see what else, Madison, Christchurch, I think is that South Africa maybe, Joinville.
New Zealand.
It's New Zealand?
That's in New Zealand.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
New Zealand, man, I'm not great in geography. I'm not sure where Joinville is either.
Yeah, not either.
Yeah, so these are we're well represented in the SQL Saturday sessions, and in fact, it was pretty cool. Last week in Phoenix, I believe there were about a dozen women speakers. So we really appreciate the women getting out, and it's great for their careers too. It helps us all. Next month, we have Jen McCown speaking about Minion Backup. This is a free solution that can really help you automate your backups and give you a lot more functionality than you can get with the traditional wizard type backups. So we're looking forward to hearing from Jen. And today's session, as I mentioned, I'm really pleased that today we're going to hear from co-leader of the WIT chapter, Ree Irish, and Ree is going to talk about identifying and combating gender bias and inequality. This is something like you may think that you don't have gender bias, but we all do, and she's going to show us how we can identify that in ourselves and what we can do about it. Ree is a single mom raising her beautiful daughter in North Atlanta. She's been a SQL Server DBA and manager for over 15 years. She's worked in many industries, including the nonprofit sector, big pharma, federal contracting, and payment processing. She's very involved with the Atlanta MDF user group and helps plan their SQL Saturdays, and I am really thrilled and honored to work with work with Ree on the Past Wit chapter. So before I hand it over to Ree, if you have any questions during this session, be sure to type them in the little question dialogue on the GoToWebinar app, and I will, some of them I may stop Ree and go ahead and ask the question, or if we don't get to the question, she may have time at the end to take some other ones. So Ree, are you ready to go?
I am, thank you.
Okay, so I guess you can make yourself a presenter since you're an organizer.
Okay.
And I will mute myself.
Awesome.
All right.
So I welcome everybody to the last final session of March for International Women's Month. As Kathy mentioned, we were very pleased to get to do this and highlight some women in our field. Wendy Pastrick did a session, and it's recorded and posted on imposter syndrome and different ways to be confident at work and solutions for that. So if you get a chance, go and check that out. Kathy already did my bio, so I'm incredibly pleased. And Sequel Saturday Atlanta, I'm an organizer again this year, is on the books. It's July 15th, and it's live. So if any of you guys out there are speakers and would like to submit, we'd love to consider your session. She said I'm a co-leader of the Women in Technology virtual group that we have. It's our job to encourage, energize, and empower. And I also happen to be an IDERA ACE. And an IDERA ACE is someone who is, I don't work for IDERA, but they do support me in my efforts in the community, speaking at Sequel Saturdays. They allow me to do webinars for them. I blog for them. I answer questions on their communities, work on white papers, and things like that. And of course, as you guys know, IDERA sponsors a lot of Sequel Saturdays. So today we're going to talk about identifying, understanding, and combating gender bias and inequality. So bias is something that we're all guilty of. It's unconscious. It stems from our long-held misperceptions about women, their job responsibilities, and their roles. It's one of those things that feeds into itself. Bias exists, so you see it, you expect it, and you have it. It exists, you see it, you expect it. So we really have to work on stopping that loop. So we're going to talk today about some of the origins of biases that we have, how to identify gender bias when we see it. This session will be about developing positive solutions. The problem also often goes undiscussed. We're going to talk about how to be an ally. We'll discuss some strategies for how both men and women can combat this at work and in their everyday lives. If any of you have ever attended one of my WIT sessions that I do at Sequel Saturdays, you'll know that I always tell people we want to find a positive solution. There will be some griping, there will be some complaining when these are group discussions, but you should expect when you present me with a problem, I'm going to ask you, how do you think you should have handled it? How do you want to handle it next time? Or I'm going to ask somebody else that's in the session how they should handle it. These problems aren't insurmountable. You guys can all be part of the solution, and we can do this together. We just have to be aware of what's going on. So what is gender bias? The definition is any tendency which prevents unprejudiced consideration of a question or behavior. It occurs because of an individual's stereotypes and prejudice about gender become implicitly unknowing but systematically implemented into their everyday life. I'm sure if you gave it some thought or looked around you right now, you would find you'd be able to see some example of gender bias, whether it's picking up a kid's book, whether it's doing a Google search of, I challenge you to do this, do a Google search, an image search of doctor, and do a Google image search of nurse, or do the same thing with teacher and professor. I think you'll be, actually you probably won't be surprised at what you see. So why do we have bias? We go out in the world every day and we make decisions We possess an instinct that tells us if a person, place, or object is safe or not. This is what started as our fight or flight response. We see something or someone that feels dangerous or feels different or wants us to be cautious. We've already launched into action subconsciously before we have even started thinking. Our sense of comfort or discomfort has already been engaged, and this begins the source of bias. So it's our job to identify when we feel this way, to become aware of when it happens, shift it from unconscious to conscious, and ask yourself, why did you make that assessment about that person? This isn't just gender specific. This is about someone who is in a different socioeconomic status than you, someone of a different ethnicity or race than you, someone of a different religion. You're bombarded with images every day that tell you certain things are true about different groups of people, and it's your job to be aware that you've been taught this and to ask yourself if it's true. It's your job to determine how to act on it. So why does it matter? Why does it matter if you think a certain thing or believe a certain behavior about a certain group? And the answer is because it controls your behavior. What you think about something controls how you act. So why does it matter how you act? Well, because there is gender bias in hiring. So there was a study from '99 where identical resumes were sent out listing, and they did a series of resumes listing Karen Miller versus Brian Miller. Those were picked as gender-specific names. And those presented with a male resume chose him 79% of the time. Those presented with a female resume chose her 49% of the time. And these were when both men or women were being asked, whether they were hiring manager or they were just part of a study, they were in a department at a university. Tell us which one of these you would prefer to hire. Quite often about the woman resume, respondents would say, well, I would need to see her job talk. It's impossible to make a judgment without teaching evaluations. Or they would ask for evidence that she had gotten the grants and publications listed on this resume on her own. They didn't ask for these follow-up qualifications for the male. They did this almost exclusively for the females. And if you think that's an old study, these studies have been repeated in 2012, 2013, and 2015. And one study from 2013, the name they used were James versus Jennifer. Both male and female faculty members, and these were specific to psychology departments, rated the female candidate worse. The female was often described as less competent, less hireable, or offered a lower salary. The female candidate was, in many situations, offered or recommended to get up to a 40% lower salary than they recommended that the man got. And again, they would ask for follow-up qualifications. If the researchers followed up with, well, what did you not like about this female candidate? Depending on how they weighted the resume, if they gave them a great deal of experience but not a lot of education, they would say, to justify not picking this person, they would say, well, we were looking for someone with a little more education. When they would be asked about the resume where they were weighted separately, not a lot of experience versus a great deal of education, they would say the opposite was true. So, and this happened frequently enough that it's not an accident. You find a reason to support the bias that you already have. So it's important that you know you have it and to take steps to change your behavior. Gender bias in hiring shows up in tech companies. The percentage of women working in major tech companies is remarkably consistent at 30%. As you can see here, Amazon's at 37, Facebook 31, Twitter 30%, Microsoft is at 29. Now when these numbers were pulled, I think this is data from 2014, and I know for a fact that Microsoft has actually made a concerted effort over the last 12 to 18 months to increase how they pursue minority candidates, whether that be female, African American, or other ethnicities. A concerted effort. I think they've even reached out to both Kathy and I, or other speakers when we speak at a Sequel Saturday to say, hey, can you let people know we're hiring? Here's the slide. Can you put this in your deck? Because they know that women will be in our sessions. So why 30%? Why does this number, why is it so consistent at 30%? And the prevailing theory seems to be that water seeks its own level. 30% of women or other minorities in a company are where the majority tend to feel comfortable. And again, it's unconscious. So, but at 30%, there's an extremely high chance that you're going to have at least one woman in every meeting. And that might be enough to gloss over the lack of diversity. You leave the meeting thinking, oh, well, I know we're diverse. There was a woman in my last meeting. There was an African American. Really? In my last meeting. Can you still see my, oh, okay. Dell, gotta love them. That's enough to put an African American in a meeting or some other minority. But of this 29 to 30% overall at tech companies, only 16% of the tech department, of the IT departments, are women. And this is because women are far more likely to be hired into other roles, whether that be administrative, whether that be in the accounting department, in the sales department. They're business analysts, they're project managers. But in jobs that are defined as IT, they only make up 16%. And of the of the tech companies that we listed on the last page, only 22% of their leadership, so management, directors, executives, only 22% are women. So this is something that we need to work on. In the 70s and 80s, women made up only 5% of professional orchestra musicians. So what's a possible solution for that? They introduced something called a blind screening process, and they put a screen between the adjudicator and the musician. So complete screen, they muffled the floor so that you couldn't hear someone walk. Women walk differently, they don't walk as heavy, or they would wear shoes that made a different sound on the floor. They took several steps to ensure that the person adjudicating did not know the gender of the musician that was auditioning for the orchestra. Immediately, the number went from 5% to 50%, making it past that preliminary audition. So we have more women coming through the funnel, more women make it into orchestras. And this doesn't control for bias that enters the process later, but we're getting through the front door and we're getting a seat at the table when you do things like this. So possible solutions to gender bias and how it presents itself in hiring are to ask your HR or your hiring manager to present you with a nameless resume. If it can't be nameless, use a first initial and a last name. These kind of gender studies have been repeated where they have used a name that would help define someone's nationality, ethnicity. I saw one particular study where someone used Jose versus Joe, and Joe got the callback, Jose did not. So this extends beyond gender. You can remove gender identifying information from a resume. In some cases, this would be the university that they attend, or specific organizations that they belong to, different things that I would identify if this resume belongs to a male or a female. Educate your hiring manager on how bias works. I send articles quite frequently to our VP of HR, and she's incredibly receptive to this. And now how far it goes, how much she's able to act on it, I can't comment on. I can say that my company is probably more diverse now than it's ever been in the 4 years that I've worked there. And I'm not taking credit for that. I'm saying that they've made efforts. But I do send an article or a link to something to the HR department. Hey, are you aware that this is possible? Hold hiring managers accountable. When you see that someone in your company is only tagging resumes that they want to talk to somebody who's male, or they're only bringing men in to interview for a specific position, or in some cases, if they're only considering female candidates, say something. Talk to HR, talk to your manager about this. They may not be aware that they're doing it. When your company produces an ad, a job ad for something, emphasize objective, measurable, and relevant qualifications over cultural or male-associated personality traits. Call out specific skills that women are socialized to be comfortable with associating with themselves. List things that talk about a collaborative working style, interpersonal skills, time management. Don't mention the bro culture. I had a recruiter pursue me heavily for a position, and he made the mistake of listing this job when he first talked about it, about how fun it was, and they played ping pong and they played games, and they had a keg there at work, and I finally, after telling this guy no repeatedly, sent him back another message that said, I am not interested in this position. I'm not interested in any position like this. I do not want to work with a bunch of drunk programmers, and I don't want to be their mother. So do me a favor and don't contact me again, period. I would like for you to remove me from your database, and I will be blocking your email. And ultimately, did it matter to how this guy sold this job to other people? He probably found some programmer to take the job, but he didn't get to work with me. And I am pretty well connected. I'm an incredibly well-networked DBA here in Atlanta. So when his name came up, or when that company's name came up, if somebody asked me about it, I made sure to talk about my experience.
Hey, before you go on, I have a question.
Okay.
The only problem with the nameless, that's referring to, like putting the initials or leaving the name off the resume, is that you can't do an internet search for the user. How could you get around this?
Well, so this is for the initial screening process. This is, at some point you have to know their name. But when you're assessing the resume alone, when you're looking at are the qualifications of this person something that I'm going to want to talk to them about, you got to get through the door. And if women's resume aren't being considered because we have an unconscious bias, we have to put that screen up, we have to muffle the floor, we have to make sure that the candidate doesn't speak so that we hear their voice until after we've identified their resume on its merit.
Okay.
And so once you've done that, then there are other things that you have to do. But the point of nameless resumes is to get them through the door.
Okay. Thanks. That's all we have right now.
So let's talk about gender inequality. Gender inequality refers to the unequal treatment or perceptions of individuals that are based on gender. It arises from differences in socially constructed gender roles. So bias is a belief, and inequality is essentially the outcome. Inequality is the result set from the gender equation. So let's see if I can get...
Can I finish my sentence? No. That should be my sentence.
Hey, bitches, shut up. Hey, Kelly.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because you did what خلاص. طب اسكتي حتى أستطيع أن أتكلم.
15 minutes past the hour. We shouldn't be talking about theories. That has theories about choices out there.
I can't believe I'm about to
You're gonna help me out. Goodbye, and I'll see you next time round, Jay. It doesn't control everything that happens in Russia. I know, but the big
We're getting absurd now.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Oops. Okay, so that particular video came from Women in the World. It's feminist type blog website that you can check out. They have a lot of great resources. So when you get a chance, check it out. So speaking while female, in 2015, a study found that men not only interrupted twice as often as women, they were 3 times as likely to interrupt a woman. Women almost never interrupt men. I'm probably an exception. An Australian study findings included, and this was from 2015 as well, that women don't speak as much without interruption as men. Of 311 interruptions that happened during this study, if the interruption questioned a speaker's authority or credibility, 213 of those times were directed toward women, so 2 out of 3. Female witnesses were called emotional, unreasonable, or words similar to that effect 163 times, and 120 of those comments were made by men. And women were more likely to be punished for their interruptions than their male peers by the chair during public hearings. I think most recently everybody here is familiar with Elizabeth Warren being told to essentially sit down and shut up during the Jeff Sessions hearing. I have a Let Her Finish session. If you guys haven't seen it, it's probably going to be coming up at a sequel Saturday, and we get a little further in depth into that. So getting a seat at the table. I talked earlier about getting in the front door. Well, once you're there, how do you make an impact? So women working for the Obama White House complained that they weren't being led into important meetings, and when they were ignored. Now, as Obama left office, he had one of the most diverse staffs, whether that be his cabinet or the people who worked for him in various roles, than a lot of other presidents historically have had. But his first term in office wasn't quite that way. It was pretty much par for the course. But as these men aged out or graduated from their position, it's very rare for anybody to make it through 2 terms of a president. They were far more likely to be replaced by women or other minorities. So females staffers adopted a meeting strategy called amplification. Now, one thing that they did is once they made it in the door of a meeting, they would say, hey, you know who I think would be really good on this project? Kathy Kellenberger. We should invite Kathy Kellenberger to this meeting. Once you make it in the door, it's your job to pull somebody along with you. So, and that's what they did. Hey, we need this other person. And if you think that's unfair, let me tell you, if you think guys don't do this in business, that you think they don't because they work closely with the guys who are beside them, of course they recommend this other guy to attend a meeting. Of course they do. They work with him routinely. They know he works well, and they're happy to do it. So that's what happens, and it's a skill set that women need to learn to do as well. Once you're in the door, drag another woman through the door with you. So female staffers adopted this meeting strategy called amplification. When a woman made a key point in a meeting, another woman in the meeting would repeat it and give her credit for it. Oh, Kathy, you recommended that we do X, Y, Z. I think that's a great idea. Tell me more about it. Once I give her credit for it, someone else in the room can't jump on the idea and claim it as their own. It works. It works. I've had some guys, after attending these sessions or after I blogged about it or whatever, repeat a tweet of mine and say, oh, Ree, that's a great idea. You said so-and-so. And they entertain themselves at this. So inequality shows up in compensation. I just love this cartoon. So three-fourths of a penny for your thoughts. It just kind of entertains me. So the wage gap is real. If you were to go and do a Google search of is the wage gap real, I'm willing to bet that most of the first page of result sets would be white men trying to explain to you why the wage gap is not real. I do not understand why anybody wants to deny that it's not real, because it's not as if women are saying, I think you should earn less. What we're saying is you should pay me equitably. If I have done this job for the same amount of years as you, if I have the same education as you, if I am as strong at you at this job, why in the world would you only pay me 78 cents on the dollar to a man? So equality doesn't mean dragging somebody else down with you. It means allowing me to stand on the same step as you. And when you calculate the wage gap strictly as number, dividing the median annual income of women by the median annual income of men, women earn less. This gap is even larger for minority women. It's about 64 cents on the dollar at its lowest point for African American women or Hispanic women, which are even lower.
Is your company looking to maximize their output while cutting back on costs? Why outsource all your production to faraway countries like India, China, and Narnia when we have the cheapest and best workforce right here in the good old US of A? Women. That's right. With pink sourcing, women are a bargain at the workplace since you only have to pay them 77 cents on the dollar. Right, Kathy?
Wait, what? I make 60 cents. Who are you, Bill Gates?
I make 55 cents. Who is she, Yeezy? No, come on. Those are men. Even more importantly, you don't have to pay women overtime. They'll never ask for a raise, and they don't complain about their working conditions. Right, Kathy? Don't forget, women are great at remembering birthdays. They're the only ones who bring baked goods into the office, and they smell nice. Also, you don't have to pay for women's birth control. And if they do get knocked up, when they leave to have the baby, you get off scot-free. But don't worry, guys. Your boner pills are still covered. And ladies, who cares if you make $30,000 less than men at your job when they have free tampons in the bathroom? Best of all, you can promote literally anyone else besides them, especially if they're less qualified. Sorry, Kathy. My name is Sharon. Bitch. After all, women don't even really want to be working anyway. They'd rather be home, taking care of the family, while their husband gets to make life choices and follow his dreams and play fantasy football. So try pink sourcing today. Pink sourcing, pretty cheap labor. Will also work for compliments.
So let's talk about the wage gap for just a few minutes. So gender disparity, these numbers are from 2015. In almost every state in the country, millennial women are more likely than millennial men to have a college degree. However, they also have higher poverty rates and lower earnings than millennial men. By the time a college-educated woman turns 59, she will have lost almost $800,000 throughout her life due to the gender wage gap. At the current rate, so if current trends continue, the narrowing of the pay gap in most states, women won't achieve equal pay until 2058. I don't know about you guys, but I intend to no longer be working in 2058. And in 5 states, West Virginia, Utah, Louisiana, North Dakota, and Wyoming, of those women born today, they will not see equal pay in their lifetime. The gap won't close until after 2100. I know that I won't be working then. So we have made some progress. Back in the 1960s, it was 61 cents on the dollar. Now we're at 78 cents on the dollar, but we still have a long way to go. The wage gap broken out by profession. So nurses are at 91%. And why are nurses so equitable in pay? And it's because most places that employ nurses have a pay scale, and they have a chart. If you are an RN and you have a bachelor's degree, a BS in nursing, and you have been working for 10 years, you make X amount of dollars. And it's not they're far less likely to get merit increases or bonuses based on stellar performance or something. So it's very rigid. Lawyers, again, it's about the same. A lawyer, these aren't just trial attorneys. This is attorneys do a lot of contract work, do a lot of whatever else. And so those are pretty rigid in, you get paid by the amount of work that you do. Software developers, it's at 80%. The retail sales number, because I don't know how these numbers were sourced, I do not know how this takes into consideration commission or not. I believe it's just base salary. So men are hired in making more money in retail sales than women are. Do we have any more questions before I talk about how we can help solve the wage gap problem, Kathy?
We do not, except for a comment about the video, that the video was funny, but it's not really funny. And that's all I have right now.
So when I first, the very first webinar I watched about unconscious bias and inequality and things like that. So by the end of the webinar, I was angry. I try to add a little bit of humor to these because it's such a serious topic to me. So I try to just kind of lighten things up a little bit and not get too serious. But at the same time, I get angry, and I wonder why in the world did I wait until I was in my 40s to start doing something about this for other people instead of just fighting for myself over the years. So you're right. It's kind of sorry, not sorry, funny, not funny. I get it. I totally get it. So what can we do about this? Well, the first thing we can do is raise the minimum wage and raise the minimum tipped wage. And why does this matter? Because women are far more likely to work in positions where the pay is based on minimum wage. Now, I don't mean being paid at minimum wage. When people talk about raising the minimum wage, I often hear the argument that it's just some high schooler making my burger. And the answer is not really. Most people who work in minimum wage jobs are adults. They are women and they are mothers. But the positions that are based on minimum wage, like my job, I'm salary based. I negotiated a yearly rate for what it is that I do for the company. But the teacher's assistants at your school, the people who work at your daycare, the women who work in support at your doctor's office, quite often people who work in accounting or payroll departments or different things like that are paid an hourly wage. Any job, even quite often EMTs, the person who's going to come put you in an ambulance and take you to the hospital when you have had a heart attack or a car accident, their salary is based on an hourly wage. So those jobs are the ones we're talking about. If you raise the minimum wage, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so when you raise that base minimum wage, it raises other salaries around it. So this genuinely isn't just about the kid bagging your groceries or the person that makes your cheeseburger, who, yes, I know, sometimes they get it wrong. But another thing that you can do, let me skip back really quick to the minimum tipped wage. I don't know if everybody on this webinar knows it, but in a lot of states, the minimum tip wage is somewhere between $2 and $3 an hour. So if you're in a restaurant and you're not tipping that waitress who's waiting on you, please know that she made less than $2 to do it. So if you raise the minimum tipped wage, even by a couple of bucks, it will really, really make a difference in closing the wage gap in women. So support pay transparency. Now, some states make it against the law for, like in Massachusetts, it is against the law to tell your employees they are not allowed to discuss their paycheck with anybody else at work. When a company puts bars you from talking about your salary with other employees, they are not doing it to protect you. They are doing it to protect themselves. If I am not allowed to talk to Joe about how much Joe makes, then how do I know if they're paying me equitably? How do I know what the company thinks being a developer is worth? Past sick pay legislation and paid and family medical leave. Women are far more likely to be the person who has to stay at home with a sick child or a sick parent. And requiring paid family or medical leave would be a huge step toward closing the wage gap, because companies that don't have paid sick or family medical leave are far more likely to be positions where the person is paid based on the minimum wage. When they have to miss work for a sick kid, they're not getting paid for that. It actually opens the wage gap more. If they're only getting paid for working 40 hours a week, if they work 40 hours a week and they don't get any vacation, they don't get any medical leave, they don't get any family leave, that day off is far more detrimental to them because they're making a lower rate than it is for others. So help women become better negotiators. Women, let me say this with all seriousness. Learn what you're worth. There are so many resources out there that can tell you what the going rate is for a data analyst, for a DBA. I know salary.com does it. You can help find what you should be paid for doing the job that you want. And don't be afraid to negotiate for a raise every year. Keep track of the emails that you got sent that said, thanks for doing this, Kathy. Thanks for a fast turnaround. Can you, great job. Keep track of the projects that you worked on at work, and if you can find out how much money they generated for the company, then keep track of that. And when it's time to walk in there for your raise, tell them that they're not paying you what you're worth. And then learn the art of silence. Tell them what you're worth, tell them what you want, and then sit there with your hands folded in your lap. Make them blink first. I haven't had to do this for a long, long time, but the very first time I did, my heart was racing, my hands were clammy, I broke out into a sweat, but I sat there and I waited. I told him what I wanted. I told him what I was worth. I told him what I would accept, and then I shut up. Because at that point it had ceased to be a negotiation. I told him what I wanted. And I got most of it. I didn't get all of it. They couldn't justify quite the number that I was asking for. And I did cut them some slack because it was a nonprofit. But I loved the job, and I loved what I did, and I loved the people that I worked with. So it was worth it for me. Now, it wasn't worth it for me to continue working for much less than what I was worth. I had a family. So finally, support equal pay legislation. The Lilly Ledbetter Act didn't quite go far enough. Companies should be required and should routinely go back and examine what they're paying their employees to make sure that they're not inequitably paying a male and a female for the same job. If for no other reason than to benefit themselves so that they don't get sued for it.
Before you, you want to go ahead and do questions? I just took the break as when I saw you were switching slides. Got several comments and questions. What is the best way to determine within our own company if there is a wage gap? Because most companies don't promote their wages for employees.
You have to ask.
Just take the initiative and ask. Okay. This one is a comment. I believe there's a difference between gender bias in the South versus California. I see the bias, but I make the same or more than the guys I work with, although I do have to pretend to be one of the guys to get respect. So.
Okay, so gender bias isn't the same as gender inequality, and it's gender inequality specifically that deals with pay. So you're probably right. It does vary by state. It is much worse in the South, although the numbers that I pulled are national numbers. So the pay equity difference is greater in the Southeast here in the United States. It's greater for African Americans. It's greater for African American women or Hispanic women as well. But gender bias and how you're perceived and how people act around you and having to be one of the guys, I tend to think that that's universal, or as far as I can speak, national, as to how women are treated, that they do have to be one of the guys, that they do have to be a little tougher, be a little rougher. I read a fantastic article this last week that talked about, it talked specifically about gender bias in hiring and how quite often in some instances in IT, women do get paid, or women are chosen to be hired when their resumes make it to the hiring manager more frequently than men. But they attribute it to, you have to be the best and the brightest in your field. You have to be a standout to have made it this far. I can speak to a lot of the women that I know in the SQL community, or speak about a lot of the women that I know in the SQL community, and I'm always amazed at how strong and capable and all around, holy crap, they are. And it's because only the strong survive. And so what I have left in my cohort are the women who made it this far, as opposed to those who didn't make it, who couldn't sit in a room with 12 men all day and put up with their bullshit, or put up with having to fight for their salary year after year, that had to fight for getting paid what they're worth when they walked into the interview, or couldn't, who weren't strong enough or didn't have enough personality to push back and make it this far. So I think my cohort skews my result set quite frequently, that I see how amazing these women are. And I realize that it's because they're the best of the best. They're the ones who made it through the most adversity. So
there's several more, but maybe we'll leave them towards the end.
Okay.
All right.
I have a couple of other topics, but that we can go through. But so equal pay would cut poverty in half for families with a working woman. It would pay. Let me say that again. Pay equality. So paying women equal would cut poverty in half. That would save the federal government money on food stamps, on any other kind of welfare support that goes to help women go get childcare because they're out working. So you want them to go out and get a job? They would love to go out and get a job. They would love to go out if you'd pay them a wage that allows them to still support their family and work. They would love to. So try. So we're gonna talk about sexism for just a minute, Kathy. So if you think there are questions, or do you want to try to get through this real quick and then we'll handle questions?
We have a really nice, neat comment that I'm going to bring up. So one of our people on this session is actually the leader of another chapter from PASS, and he's saying that most of his best speakers are women. So what you were saying, probably about how the women that make it to the top have had to work harder, had to be the best. So he may be validating that. He's saying what you are saying is true. So it's great that he's sees that and acknowledges that. But again, like you said, you have to prove that you're better to get to that point.
Right.
So
So let's talk. Actually, I could probably guess which virtual chapter leader that is, and he is an amazing supporter of the WIT chapter and what we do. So I actually probably know exactly who that is. So let's talk about sexism. And sexism is the belief that one sex, usually the male, is naturally superior to the other and should dominate most important areas of political, economic, and social life. Sexism is both discrimination based on gender and the attitude, stereotypes, and cultural elements that promote discrimination. So it's bias and it's the inequality together.
So, I heard you're about to have your first kid. Congratulations. Yeah. It's a girl. We're thrilled. I'm a little nervous. Don't be. You'll do great. Although the timing is a little unfortunate. How so? Well, we have a new job opening coming up, and I was thinking about recommending you, but I assume you don't want to switch to part-time as a new father. Okay, let's get started.
Bill, would you mind taking notes on the whiteboard? You have the loveliest handwriting.
Okay.
Good morning. I have a meeting with Erica Martinez. Oh, hi. Oh, it's great to see you again. I've been meaning to ask you to get in touch with my assistant to reschedule that meeting from last week. Oh, by the way, I'm so sorry. Are you Nadia or Daniel's assistant?
I'm your finance manager.
Okay, folks. Big meeting is coming up tomorrow. What do you want to handle it? I definitely think Isabel should be part of this, since she did all the analysis. I think Maria should be there as well. It'll be a great chance for her to see what these kinds of meetings are like. Makes sense to me. But this is beginning to feel like a big group. Bill, why don't you sit this one out? And that one will feel like less of a crowd.
This seems really important. I'd hate to miss out on something that can have a big impact on what we're doing.
Listen, Bill, we're going to need you to be more of a team player if you're going to be successful here. You did a surprisingly good job on the numbers for the board. It was pretty complicated and math heavy, but you seemed to get it right away. Oh, great. Sounds like some real potential there. Yeah.
Oops.
But he needs to be more assertive, more forceful. Sometimes he can come off as too soft and nice. You know, a few others have mentioned something along those lines. I think I'm going to bring it up with him. I wouldn't do that. He can be a little emotional, and sometimes his feelings get the best of him. I'll find a way to work it in. Okay. Wow! 3 men on one team. This is pretty rare.
Oh, Rose is really passionate and excited about the topic.
Really? I just wouldn't have guessed you guys would be interested in working on a new perfume launch.
I thought this would be a great way to get more experience in product marketing. Yeah, and a huge opportunity to do some really creative work.
Of course, you know that's great. I'm glad you guys are here. Looking forward to the chit-chat about the football, the sports cars, and the planning meetings. Yeah, keep up the good work. Are you okay? You seem a little stressed lately. Everything okay at home?
Actually, everything's fine. Why do you ask?
Well, it's just you seem a little disheveled lately. Normally, you're so well put together and stylish. The stress of the job's starting to get to you?
No, just trying to stay on top of these presentation deadlines we got coming up.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. That's a lot for you to handle on your own. If you want someone to take some of that workload off of you, Alicia works great under pressure.
Thanks for the offer. Got an email.
Hey, how you doing?
Excited about the party. Just feel bad about being so late, but I got stuck in traffic.
Oh, no worries. These office things, they don't really start on time. So who are you here with?
Oh, my wife couldn't make it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed that you were one of the 1,000.
I don't know, I work here. My wife doesn't.
Oh, that's nice.
So we're going to actually breeze through sexist ideas really quickly and some sexist behavior that I think a lot of us are guilty of, myself included, so we can get to gender bias starting young and in kids. I just want to make sure that we really get to that. So some sexist ideas or sexist comments that are subtle that you probably don't even realize are a problem. Asking a woman when she's getting married or having kids, I don't think it happens very frequently to men coworkers or even men that you run across in the grocery store, but they just ask, oh yeah, hey, when are you getting married? When's he going to make an honest woman out of you? Describing any particular behavior as unladylike. It should not matter what my gender is in the workplace as to whether or not I don't act like a jerk or not. So an unequal balance of labor during the marriage. Now let me be clear about this. I'm not talking about when a couple decides together for a woman to be a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home wife, that if that's how they have chosen together to balance their workload, that he works outside of the home and her contribution or his contribution is to take care of the house and the kids, that is balanced. When I say unbalanced, what I mean is when both parts of a couple work outside the home, yet the wife in the relationship is the one who has to take care of the kids and do dinner and do laundry and do all of the other things that are typically defined as a female role. That's a sexist idea or behavior in a marriage. Being uncomfortable with switched gender roles, like in the video that we just watched, when a guy is the stay-at-home parent. If you have a couple, as you as a couple have decided that she has more earning potential and that, or even that he is more of the nurturer, if that's the decision you come to together, great. When you as an outsider look at that and it kind of bothers you that he's the stay-at-home parent, then guess what? You're being sexist. So, and I'll actually stop on this one, but being expected to do work that isn't related to your actual job. If you as an IT department all get together and have a meeting and it's during lunch and you expect the female who works on your team, when it's not her job, to be the one who orders lunch, guess what? You're part of the problem. Asking her to be the one who takes notes in the meeting, again, you're part of the problem. This one always entertains me. I typically use Google, and Google, of course, learns your search habits. So I use Bing to take this particular screenshot just to find out what women should do. I do not know what women should wear a man garment means. We always talk about this in my session. I had a woman once suggest that meant wearing a skin suit. And I can't ever get that out of my head. What that will always mean to me for the rest of my life. So let's talk about gender bias being learned young. So this is from an elementary classroom experience specific to first graders, and this happened in the UK. They asked the kids in the class to give them a list of words that described girls and then a list that described boys. And as you can see, pretty, Barbie, peaceful games, sassy, dresses, feelings, nail polish, skirts, tiara, ponies, strong, finally. Boys, soccer, active games, strong, video games, jeans, trains, sneakers, hard challenges, fast, funny, serious, magic tricks. However, when they then asked the kids to, when they ask kids to raise their hand if any of these words described you, girls had no problem raising their hands when they said things like soccer, powerful, hard challenges, or karate, but boys raised their hands for feelings, ponies, and peaceful. So depending on how you approach the problem can control the output. You guys have probably seen the "like a girl" mantra, trying to turn that around to be something good instead of an insult. If you run, you run like a girl. I saw recently, somebody said, it was as if a little girl had phrased it. My coach told me I ran like a girl, and I told him that if he kept practicing, he could run this fast too. Girls believe brilliance is a male trait. This one blew me away. I found this recently, that girls as young as 6 years old believe that brilliance is a male trait. That they found that girls, unlike boys, don't believe that achieving good grades is related to innate abilities. Girls are far more likely to believe that it has to do with how hard you work and how much you study, and boys just think that they're born smart. Children were asked which person in a picture was smarter, which would excel academically, and when they were read a story about a really smart person, far more frequently boys and girls picked the boy, that the story was about the boy. And this happens at about age 6. It starts really young. As you can see, the doctor kit is for a boy because it's blue. And there's a nice handsome little boy there on the box, but the nurse is a female. These onesies in a store, the girls actually reads, just in case you can't see that, "I hate my thighs," and the boys reads, "I'm super." The topic on these books for boys versus girls are pretty sexist. Toys for these pictures came up because I googled toys for boys. They promote physical action. They focus on skills like competition, invention, exploration, problem solving. And we teach boys to be warrior-like. I Google searched toys for girls, and this is what I found. We teach girls, we give them toys that are considered more appropriate for girls and their careers, that promote beauty, appearance, or nurturing behavior. So I always love to show this particular slide on how to tell if a toy is for a boy or a girl. And if you are operating with this toy with your genitalia, it is not for children, okay? So some solutions to gender bias in children from everydaysexism.com. Understand the gender biased messages that your kids get every day. Be a good role model. Accept your kids for who they are and let them pick the toys that they want to play with. Let them pick the games that they want to play, and let them pick the way they want to play. And when your child makes an uncomfortable comment about gender, she's really strong or smart or fast for a girl. She's not strong or fast or smart for a girl. She's really strong, fast, or smart. When they make comments like, "I'm not wearing those dress shoes are gay." If gay were a bad thing, I'd get it, but it's not. When your daughter says, "I hate being bigger than all the boys in my class," or even assuming that boys are better athletes than girls. Those things happen to not be true. So we can actually wrap it up here, Kathy, if you want. I think we're a couple of minutes over. I can make sure that the slide deck is available, and of course the video will go up, but I have some where we talk about the pink tax, which is, even made even worse because the wage gap is so large. So did we have any additional questions, Kathy?
There's one comment, I'm just going to summarize it. It was really appreciated that you had the breakdown on the statistics on the wage gap, because just showing that 78%, and it's been that same number forever, it seems like we're making it up. So that was really appreciated. And let's see, another comment from a guy. Sometimes a male does need to have it pointed out. He didn't realize his interruption pattern until one of his coworkers pointed it out, and then he worked on changing that.
So let me say something really quick, and I do this during my Let Her Finish session. There are some things that you as a woman can do to get your point across in meetings, but there are also things you can do as a man. So if you're a guy and you're in a meeting and you notice this pattern, and I promise you if you look for it, you'll see it. Learn to say, let her finish. Learn to say, she just said that. And learn to say, stop interrupting. And as a woman, you can learn to say, I just said that. Say, let me finish. And hold your hand up when you say it. Not too high, because too high is aggressive, but slightly below shoulder height. When you hold up your hand and say, let me finish, or stop interrupting me, it's less aggressive and better perceived. So, and I just said that. Don't let somebody else take credit for what you say, but be aware that it happens. And even if you're a female in a meeting, learn to say, let her finish, or stop interrupting her.
Those are great. Another interesting question, it'd be interesting to know what the countries are with smaller page pay gaps are doing better, because this is not the same all over the world. So that would be interesting to know.
Well, so any country that is a more homogenous society has a smaller gap. And when I say that, I mean when it's a country that is mostly white or mostly Hispanic or mostly African American, that they don't have a lot of mix. They tend to have fewer social problems. So pick a country that lacks diversity, and you'll probably find a country, at least specific to gender, you'll find a country that has a smaller wage gap.
I would
industrialized, first world countries.
Okay. Yeah, I would think in some countries it'd be the opposite. But
so it would depend on that would depend on the type of culture they're in.
Right.
Which I could probably do a whole other session on, but.
Right. Okay. There's a couple more comments, just like one of the male coworkers likes to speak for me. When he does, I always call him out on that. That's more of a comment than a question.
So I actually have said at some point when somebody does that, I've said in a meeting, wow, it's so weird. When I open my mouth, my opinion comes out in your voice. So it's a slightly sarcastic, slightly humorous way to point out what they're doing.
Right. And someone else said, I think he's right. We don't mean to do that in most instances. Maybe a series of sessions on helping us see that. So, or maybe some resources that has training out there, or maybe
I do talk a lot about how this particular bias and inequality are unconscious, that we're not aware of it. So once it's been pointed out to you and you're aware of it, if you continue to do it, you're a jerk, So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I think we've pretty much covered all the questions.
Good. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you very, very much for coming today. I really appreciate this. And thanks for moderating today, Kathy.
You're welcome. And thank you, Ree, for presenting this today. I really, I know when we were organizing this month, I really pushed for this session. I knew that it was very important, and I was really glad that Ree agreed to do it. And thank you to all the attendees for being here as well today. We'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Bye.